Right now, statistically, you are the safest human being who has ever lived. You will almost certainly not be eaten today. You will not starve. You will not be killed by a rival group, struck by lightning, or die from a cut on your hand. The actual probability of you dying in the next 24 hours is so low that it would take a calculator to express it meaningfully. And yet, something feels wrong. Something always feels wrong. A noise in the house at night, a strange sensation in your chest, a conversation that went slightly off and won't leave your mind, the news, which your brain absorbs like it's personally threatened by every story on it. You are not anxious because something is wrong with you. You are anxious because you are running a threat detection system installed over hundreds of thousands of years, calibrated for a world that no longer exists. And understanding what that world actually looked like, what your ancestors genuinely believed was going to kill them, changes everything about why your brain behaves the way it does today. Start with the obvious ones, because they were real. Predators first. For the overwhelming majority of human prehistory, large carnivores were a genuine, daily, non-negotiable feature of life. Lions, leopards, hyenas, cave bears, dire wolves. Animals that were faster than you, stronger than you, and actively hunted you after dark. Anthropologist Paul Trout documented that predation pressure on early humans was so severe that it fundamentally shaped our neurology. The specific fears that feel most instinctive to modern humans: darkness, sudden movement at the edge of vision, large animals, heights, enclosed spaces, being alone, are not random. They map precisely onto the conditions under which your ancestors were most likely to be killed. Darkness, because predators hunted at night and you couldn't see them coming. Sudden movement at the edge of vision, because that's how an ambush begins. Large animals, because they could end you in seconds. Heights, because a fall was often unsurvivable. Being alone, because a solitary human was exponentially more vulnerable than a group. These fears were not irrational. They were accurate. They were a correct reading of a genuinely dangerous world, compressed into an automatic response system so fast it bypasses conscious thought entirely. Your brain still runs that system, every time, without asking you. But predators weren't what your ancestors feared most. The evidence is consistent across every anthropological study ever conducted on hunter-gatherer groups. The thing ancient humans feared above everything else, the threat they spent more time managing, more social energy preventing, more psychological resources worrying about than any predator, was each other. Specifically, being cast out. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying the social dynamics of hunter-gatherer groups and found something that reframes human psychology entirely. In small, mobile groups with no formal authority, the greatest single threat to any individual was social exclusion, being pushed out of the group for selfishness, for breaking social rules, for taking more than your share, for failing to contribute. And exclusion meant death, not metaphorical death, actual death. A solitary human in the Pleistocene had no realistic survival prospects, no one to hunt with, share food with, or watch their back while they slept. Exclusion from the group was a slower version of being left for the predators, so your brain developed an obsession with social standing, with how others perceive you, with fairness, reciprocity, reputation, with the subtle signals that tell you whether you are accepted or at risk of being pushed out. That system is still running at full power in a world where social rejection does not kill you, where the worst realistic outcome of being unpopular is discomfort, not death. But your brain doesn't know that. It never got the update. This is why a critical comment from a stranger on the internet can ruin your entire day. Why being left out of a social event feels physically painful. Why public embarrassment triggers the same stress response as a physical threat. Your nervous system is not overreacting. It is reacting exactly as it was calibrated to react, to a threat that no longer carries the same consequences, in a world it was never designed for. Then there was the fear nobody talks about, the one that lives in the archaeological record in the strangest places, the dark. Not darkness as an environment, darkness as a presence. there is substantial evidence that ancient humans believed the night was populated, not metaphorically, literally inhabited by forces that could reach into your body and pull something out of it. Every culture in the archaeological record, without exception, developed some version of this belief independently. Spirits, ancestors, entities that moved through the world unseen and could harm you in ways that left no physical marks. Archaeologist David Lewis Williams spent decades studying the neurological basis of ancient belief systems and found that the human brain, when deprived of external stimulation, in darkness, in isolation, in states of hunger or fever, generates internally sourced imagery, patterns, figures, presences, sensations of being watched, of something moving just outside the field of vision. This is not supernatural. It is neurological. Your visual cortex, deprived of input, begins generating its own. And in a world with no science to explain it, that internal imagery became evidence of external reality. The things your ancestors feared in the dark were things their brains were genuinely showing them. The terror was real. The neurological experience was real. The explanation they built around it was the most rational available to people with the knowledge they had. And here is where it connects directly to you. The feeling of being watched when no one is there. The inexplicable dread of certain dark rooms. The sense, right on the edge of sleep, that something is present. These are not signs of irrationality. They are your visual cortex doing exactly what ancient human visual cortices did in darkness, without enough input to know what is real. You are not imagining things. You are running ancient hardware in a modern environment. Here's the part that reframes everything. Ancient humans were not wrong about most of what they feared. Predators were real. Exclusion was fatal. Darkness contained genuine threats. Strangers from rival groups had historically been dangerous. Food running out was a constant, realistic possibility. The fears were accurate. They were built for the world that existed. The problem is not the fears. The problem is that the world changed faster than the fears could. In roughly 10,000 years, an eye blink in evolutionary terms, humans went from small, mobile groups in open landscapes to dense cities, digital networks, industrial food systems, and a level of physical safety that would be incomprehensible to any ancestor. But the threat detection system didn't update. It couldn't. Evolution doesn't work on that time scale. So you are walking around with a system calibrated for lions and starvation and exile, trying to navigate a world where the actual threats are traffic, processed food, and loneliness. And every time the system fires, every spike of social anxiety, every sleepless 3 a.m., every irrational dread, every feeling that something is wrong even when nothing is, it is not a malfunction. It is a system doing its job, looking for the lion, scanning for signs of exclusion, watching the dark, finding nothing, and not knowing what to do with that. Researchers studying anxiety disorders have found that the most effective treatments are not the ones that try to eliminate the fear response. They are the ones that teach the brain to recontextualize it, to recognize the signal, understand where it comes from, and consciously update the threat assessment. Your ancestors couldn't do that. They didn't have the distance from their fears to examine them. Every threat their brain identified was probably real. You have something they never had. You know where the fears come from. You know what they were built for. You know that the darkness is not inhabited, that the stranger is probably not an enemy, that social rejection will not kill you. That knowledge doesn't turn the system off. Nothing turns it off. It has been running for 300,000 years, and it will run for the rest of your life. But knowing what it is, knowing that the alarm was built for a world that no longer exists, is the closest thing to peace your ancient brain is ever going to find.